Hello, Laziali all over the world. Welcome to a special episode of Lazio Lounge. Yes, it's season preview, new season, completely different season for Lazio. We have a lot of question marks, a lot of things to talk about. The yellow jersey is back, but most of all, Alasdair McKenzie. This is the first time since I think the beginning of Simone Inzaghi era that Ciro is out, Luis Alberto is out, Felipe Anderson is out. What can we expect from this new season for Lazio?
I wish I could tell you. I've been like this whole week building up. Obviously, the opening games on Sunday, and so now that the Olympics is finished, especially, I've started trying to think about it more and more. And I keep going in different directions with this. I don't know if you're having the same sensation, but I keep swinging between being quite optimistic and being very, very pessimistic. And I really can't work out what direction we're going to go in. It's such an unknown. It's a proper press of the reset button, new coach, very new squad. And to be honest, a preseason that's not really told us an awful lot in terms of what we're going to see when the football actually starts. Um, so I don't know. I think it is a new era, isn't it? This is the beginning of something new, and we can get into detail about what that looks like and how we feel about it. But it's certainly a kind of Lazio 2.0, isn't it?
We have to say something before we start. The transfer market window is still not closed. It will close the last day of August, and they move it from 8 o'clock to midnight just to create a little bit of fuss. So we
That'll
hope
do it.
we hope that Lazio will sign someone from today till the end of the transfer market window. But Alistair, we are prepared, for the usual thing, right? Uh, 4 hours before the end of the transfer market window, Lazio is done agreement with XXX. Then when it's 2 hours to the end of the window, problem, the fax not working, internet connection, etc. And then midnight point one, well, it's too late. We couldn't make it, and the signing will collapse, right?
Or alternatively, maybe the extra 4 hours is all that Lazio ever needed. It was just that was the difference between success and failure all this time. Who knows? But I mean, it's been a busy mercato, Vittorio. I don't know where you want to start in this season preview, whether it's with the people who are coming in or the people who are going out or the coach, or how do you want to go about it?
Well, the last podcast we did was to talk about Ciro Immobile leaving. So I think after that we can talk about what happened, right? We said it a lot of time. This was a very old team. I think the oldest after Inter in Serie A. So it was clear we need to sign some youngsters. Now the question mark, Alistair, probably that we all have is: are these youngsters ready to don't know. I don't know how much optimistic you are. I don't think we are able to fight for the top four spots, but are these youngsters good enough for bring us to at least the Europe League again?
Yeah, I think although I said I'm very unclear still on what we're gonna see, the one thing I do feel almost certain about is that our patience is going to be tested this season. I think that we are going to have to be patient with this team because it is all change. And you're talking about the new signings we've brought in and how they brought down the average age of the squad significantly, by the way, from about 29 to 26. I looked this up earlier. Lazio now the eighth oldest team in the league instead of the second. So they have succeeded in bringing the age down, which they've been wanting to do. They've also, I guess, succeeded, if you want to say it that way, kindly in trimming the wage bill by losing so many big players. But there's the thing that is a concern is that basically for this to work, so many unknowns have to work out. You know, there has been no guarantee about any appointment that's been made, whether it's been the coach or any of the signings. There is a reason to doubt every single new addition, like quite a good reason. And that's not to say it won't work, but it does make the whole thing feel like a bit of a gamble. And it does make me feel that I wouldn't be surprised by a slow start. I wouldn't be surprised if we were in a bad situation around Christmas time. But that doesn't mean that this can't work given a bit more time. I think we have to be patient with this project, with the way this is going, because this is not being designed to give us a quick fix.
Yeah, let's say that this is a sort of 3 years project. If the plan was to win or reach the Champions League this season, I would say no chance. But we sign a lot of youngsters, promising youngsters, I would say, that need at least 1 year to get up of speed to what they need to play for a big team. And then, second year, third year, they're going to show up all the talent. And I think they have a lot. Let's start from Nosling. That is probably one of the players that maybe our listener know better, right? He came to Verona last January, did pretty well in Verona. One of the reasons Verona didn't get relegated was because Nosling scored a lot of goals. Now, it looks like we're signing to be our number 9 to compete with Tati Castellanos, but in the last week or so, he turned back to his original role, that is left back, because crossing fingers, Lazio should be signing Dia, right? Who's going to be the number 9 competing with Tati Castellanos. I think Nosling is a very fast player. He's got skill. He doesn't got, he's not a killer. He's not. We saw it in this preseason, missing a lot of opportunity. But on the left wing, I think he can be a good signing, right? Even in year 1, let's call it like that, right? Do you think so?
Yeah, I mean, I think we said from when we were discussing him last time that the good thing with him and Shauna as well is that they both have versatility. They can play pretty much anywhere across that front three. I think there are definitely roles where they'll feel more confident or feel stronger than others. But it does give us a way out. It gives us a way of kind of redesigning and changing this front three, which Baroni might have to do a bit of. Because let's be honest, Vittorio, the biggest doubt everybody has about this Lazio team going into this season is where are the goals coming from. Ciro Immobile having left is obviously the highlight of the kind of departures. The biggest attention-grabbing one. But Luis Alberto going as well is massive. Daichi Kamada is massive considering the impact he made at the end of last season. And then Felipe Anderson, people don't seem to even mention when they're talking about who's left. But that guy has been the single most dependable, reliable, and consistent player, really, over the last couple of seasons for Lazio. So I looked it up earlier, and between them, it's 23 goals and 21 assists from those 4 players that we've lost since last season. And last season wasn't a good season. So are we going to replace a combined 44 goal involvements with the guys that we brought in order to just meet par of a pretty disappointing year?
Yeah.
That's already quite a big ask. But we ideally want to be doing better than that because last year was not a big success for Lazio. And so
Yeah.
I like Noslin, I like Shona, I like a lot of these guys, but I do have doubts about whether they can realistically. We've not just lost one big player, we've lost all these guys.
Yeah, I think Zaccagni has to step up and uh, do what pretty much Felipe Anderson and Luis Alberto together did last season. He has the quality. I mean, in the Euro, he was probably the best Italian player we had. So he has talent. Last year, he's been playing not that much due to injuries. So he needs to step up. And this leads me to the other question we have to mention. Uh, Chiro's gone, Luis Alberto's gone. There have been a massive discussion on who's going to be the captain of this team. It looked like Cataldi should have been, and then Baroni said that he decided that Zaccagni should be the face, the image of the club, of this team. This created a little bit of discussion inside and outside the club. Do you agree with this decision, or do you think it should have been Cataldi the new captain this season?
I'm never convinced how much it really matters. I think it honestly, I think it matters to us as a symbolic gesture, But realistically, the captain in a football team doesn't do an awful lot. They'll speak with the referee more than others, and they'll be the kind of the guy who represents the club or the guy who's the symbolic heartbeat of the club. But it doesn't matter that much. I don't think it needs to be something that's massively blown out of proportion, really. I would have thought someone like, I don't know, Romagnoli or Provedel or, guys who are going to be playing all the time. I think that's something that worked against Cataldi because his position in the team is by no means nailed on. And I think what you want ideally is a group of leaders. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter who's wearing the armband particularly. I think something we've complained about in previous years has been that there has been a lack of leadership when things have got really difficult. And how many endless blackouts have we talked about, and the team being unable to come back from a goal behind in games, and all these kind of mentality issues. And it will be really interesting this year to see if there's a change with that, because that's something we've always questioned. Is there a mentality problem with this club? Now, completely new coach and really a completely new core to this team, that's a chance to kind of answer that question, because if the problem was the old leadership group, they're gone now pretty much. And you look at this is a chance to kind of build a new core to this team, which for me is probably, Provedel, Romagnoli, Guendouzi, probably, Zaccagni, some guys who need to take on more responsibility, and some guys like, I would say, Romagnoli, who needs to step up into that role more, and become more of that kind of figure. So the captaincy in itself, I'm not that convinced it's hugely important, but I think that the leadership and the mentality question this season is really important and will be quite interesting.
You talk about the core of this club, of this team. If you remember, when Sarri left, Lotito said that the leaders, the senatori, he called them, was the reason why Sarri left. Now, if you look back a little bit, Ciro's gone, Luis Alberto's gone, Felipe Anderson is gone. Do you think this is Lotito punishing the senatori, or it's all back to the age that was the real issue of this team? Too many old players. Because there have been discussion about this.
Well, I don't know. I think you can take each of these examples by themselves, and it kind of makes sense why they've all gone. The Ciro one was probably the most difficult because I didn't feel that was necessary. I thought there was a compromise there that could have been reached to keep him at the club, but it didn't happen. Whereas Alberto, that's Vittorio, like every 6 months we've been talking about him either wanting to or being linked with leaving the club for years now. So it's not a huge surprise that that's finally happened. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's been needed. The bringing the age down. It's been needed for a long time, and I think there is a core of group of leaders in there. I mean, it'll be interesting to see whether guys like Adam Maricic, for example, who've actually been around for a very long time compared to other people in the squad, is Adam Maricic going to be looked at as being, a potential captain or vice captain or a big voice in this group, or have they moved on? Is it all about the younger generation? Is it all about new faces, new voices? And that's kind of up to Baroni, I guess, to decide.
We didn't talk about one of the new signing that probably could be the key of the season, because we talked about Felipe Anderson going, Kamada, and Luis Alberto, but we didn't talk about Castrovilli. This has been, for various reasons, a surprising signing, right? In the last year, he played 6 games. So there are a lot of question marks on the player, not on the skill. I mean, his quality is amazing, right? But they're concerned on his fitness, on his, is he an injury-prone player? He had 2 surgery to his knee in the last 2 years. So, but he said, I want to be the new Luis Alberto. I think part of the success of this season could really depend on Castrovilli, right? If he plays more than 6 games, obviously, he can be the reason why Lazio reached the Europa League or even more, right? I think he could be the key of this, of the future of this club, at least this season, right? Until
Really?
we
Wow.
No,
I'm a little. I mean, I'll give you my take in a sec. I'm surprised you're so big on Castrovilli. I didn't
well, no,
expect you to be so positive.
no, not positive. I mean, for me, it's a huge question mark. I mean, considering the friendly games, he just played 45 minutes. And this tells you that he wasn't fit, right? And the funny thing is, he played the last 6 games of Serie A, so he should have been finished, able to play. Instead, Lazio signed him, and he didn't play a single game till what was it? Lazio's Cadiz was the only game he played 45 minutes. So on his fitness, I'm really concerned. But in my mind, he's the solution for Lazio, right? I don't think Dele Bashiro is going to be ready this season to be the new Luis Alberto. Maybe next year. I think Dele Bashiro is a very interesting player, but he needs time. Castrovilli is 27 years old. He won the Euros with the Italy squad. He was considered one of the best Italian players, but huge concern about his fitness, his condition, his knee in particular, right?
Yeah, I think, like you say, it's a gamble, but it's one worth taking because the downside, the risk of it is really doing what has happened at Fiorentina for the last year or two, which is that he's just unable to reach that fitness or make an impact. And if that happens, it's not necessarily the end of the world because I can't remember now that I've started saying this sentence, but I don't think he's been given a particularly long contract, if I remember correctly. But the upside is the complete opposite. And it was good to see the press conferences they had yesterday when they introduced all the new signings. And he was talking about how Lazio is a rebirth for him, a chance to actually kickstart his entire career. And when I saw that, I thought this could be. It was like it reminded me of the old school Iglitare signings when he got in that real groove of having an eye for players who had almost been discarded or forgotten about, but who had that motivation, to show that they had more to give. Like Lucas Leiva was almost like a forgotten man when he arrived at
Yeah.
Lazio. They hardly paid anything. Luis Alberto was the same kind of idea. He'd been kind of laughed out of the Premier League more or less, and then he became the best creative midfielder in Serie A. So it feels to me like it has the potential to be one of those kind of moves because if the guy can get into good fitness and shape, he seems to have that motivation to be like, okay, I'm turning the page. This is a new chapter in my career, and he's not that old. He does have time on his side to be able to get back to where he was. And the good thing was, we're not talking about, Nicola Zaniolo, for example, when he had all his knee injuries. That's a bigger issue because his game was about explosive pace and power and all that kind of physical qualities. Whereas Castrovilli, I don't think his game is more about his technique and his reading of the game and his dribbling and all. And he can get that back. He doesn't need to be a guy who can run at 1,000,000 miles an hour. He can reach the levels he was at before if he can find consistent fitness.
The other signing we need to talk about, because I thought it was a good signing, but now I have concern that I'm going to talk to you, is Nuno Tavares. I mean, we talk about left back, right back of Lazio a long time. And I think he's perfect. He played 23 minutes in the friendly in Auronzo. And looking at him, I say, he's perfect for us. Physical, speed, defending, great ball skills, etc. He got injured, and he's probably not going to play against Venezia in the first game of the season. Now, again, signing a player who has this type of injury is concerning, right? Because the other option we have now are not amazing. I mean, Lazzari has been playing every single friendly so far, and he has been great, to be honest. Even Pellegrini has been playing a lot, but I don't know. I hope Nuno Tavares is a good signing, but again, like Castrovilli, he needs to play. Otherwise, we don't need him, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it seems like a good signing to me. I mean, apparently we can thank Guendouzi for that one
Yep.
because he rang him up a few times to convince him. My only concern, I do like Tavares, and obviously it's a shame with the injuries, and that seems to be bit of a theme about who's actually going to be fit of all our new players at the start of the season. But I wanted more reinforcements in defence this summer, and that is something that does give me concern. It has been very much at one end of the pitch, and obviously they needed to do that because of what we've just talked about, all the goals and assists and creativity that was lost. But it does concern me a bit that a defence that really was a bit creaky last season hasn't been fixed beyond Tavares coming in, and the fullbacks in particular, to me, are a real problem area. Pellegrini's been playing in pre-season, and I do hope he can maybe fight his way back into actually having some more game time. But when it comes to Husay and Marisic and Lazzari, I think we kind of know exactly what we're going to get there, and whether that's going to be enough is another question. I'm not sure. So I don't know. You see obviously there's another couple of weeks, like you said, of the mercato, but all these players are being linked with our strikers or attacking midfielders, basically.
Yeah, but the thing, Alasdair, if you remember back in May, they were saying, Marusic is leaving for sure. Isai has already three clubs calling, etc. And then we reach the end of August, and they are all still there. I think that's the biggest reason. If we were able to sell Marusic or Isai in July or now, we will be able to sign someone else to replace them. But unfortunately, we are not able, and this is something that we do every single summer. We say we're gonna sell these players, etc., and then we are not able to do it. Same thing about Basic. He's out of the squad pretty much, and he's still in Rome. Akpa Pro is another one who have been linked massively this summer and is still in Rome. I think even Casale could have been maybe sent somewhere else, because last year he wasn't playing well. And I think maybe we need to change a little bit there. But if we don't sell players, we are stuck with the one we have, right? So this is the biggest issue we're having at the moment.
Yeah, and it's the same issue every summer, isn't it? I mean, the whole problem with having all these guys that haven't made an impact or been given up on very quickly, who are then farmed out on loan time and time again. And it's often amazing reading Lazio's full squad list every summer and being like, oh, they're still under contract, Andre Anderson and people. So yeah, I was looking earlier though, because I was wondering how much has been spent, and I guess it's a bit complicated because certain deals are tied up with with right to buy and option to buy and all this kind of stuff. But it seemed like Lazio are actually, where was it? I made a note of this. 34 million they've spent, which is 10th highest in Serie A, less than Como and Bologna and Fiorentina, as well as all the kind of big clubs. So it is slightly frustrating after season being in the Champions League and having all these big players being sold and the wage budget has been cut so much, that to feel like we've still not actually spent any money and they're not seemingly able to spend much more. But the thing that's been dangled in front of everyone is this idea that Lotito offered 20 million for Greenwood, which is in people's minds kind of still available somewhere, because if he was willing to spend it, then where is it? And now we're talking about Cherki and Dia and Foloruncio and all these guys. And I don't know where, if you were in charge, Vittorio, where would you spend that money right now? Like, would it be on these people being listed? Do we still need the striker coming in, or do we need something else?
Well, obviously, the biggest question mark is the striker. I think Tati had a good summer, to be honest with you, but I cannot trust him enough to say, he's going to score 15 goals this season. We need a...
If they're all overheads, then maybe.
Yeah, on offside, though. But
I can't believe we didn't mention his goal against Southampton. It's like he managed to miss from about 3 yards and then at the same time score this ridiculous overhead. What a guy.
It's incredible. He only going to score amazing goals, but the real number 9 is the one that score easy goals. I mean, you won't remember a great goal of Inzaghi, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, exactly. The reliable, the positioning striker who's in the right place, and it looks like he's always scoring tap-ins, but that's actually a big skill to be there, you know.
I mean, Filippo Inzaghi, I don't think have he scored behind the 2 meters line. No, I mean he's always there on the goalkeeper's line scoring, doing tap in. So I don't know. There were rumors a couple of weeks ago of Victor Roque, the number 9 of Barcelona. I thought that was a little bit out of reach for our opportunity, but I think I don't know. Do you think Dia can be the solution for our goal concerns? Because that's the player we are probably going to sign.
Well, Dia's an interesting one because he's obviously had this really problematic time in Salernitana where he's become very unpopular with the fans and tried to leave, and it's not happened. And but if you kind of strip away all of the background noise around that, his actual record in Serie A is good. Um, he is probably more of a guarantee than pretty much anyone else we're talking about
Yeah,
in terms of the new signings because he's played in the league for a few years. He's hit double figures in the league. He's Senegal international. He's got a lot of experience. I think he's 28, so he's not ancient, but compared to some of the other guys who've signed, he does look it. um, so yeah, I don't mind that. It's just that my only concern is I wouldn't want to sign him to then have to give up on strengthening other areas because we do already have Noslin and Castellanos and Shona even who can play there. I think Dia will give us more guarantees there, but it also creates questions about how that forward line is going to look. And like we need depth. One of my main concerns this season is that Baroni has never managed in Europe before, and he's already got a big task on his hands overseeing this new team, new era. But when you throw into that we're going to have Thursday night games all over again, and the squad doesn't have a huge amount of depth. I think that's going to be a tricky thing for him.
so far, are you happy about Lazio? I mean, did you see Lazio playing these friendly games? It's a completely different football compared to the Maurizio Sarri style. But do you think it's
It's going to be
good
fun. I think it'll be fun. like
for
I,
us or for the opponent?
well, as in I think Lazio will be better to watch, more entertaining to watch, and that's probably not always going to be nice for us because I feel like it's going to be a more open style and a more direct style, faster style. So I think it could go either way with that. I don't know. I think we really need Tati to somehow sort out his finishing this season. It's an obvious thing to say, but it begs being said because I think a lot depends on that. And we really want that defense to rediscover what they had the season before last because it's the same people still. Uh, if they can just find a bit of organization, a bit more protection. And I mean, look, I think this is why I keep going both directions with it. I think it's quite exciting in many ways because I see the way the team is trying to play and a lot more energy and exuberance in the team compared to Sarri's style, which was obviously quite regimented. But at the same time, I don't really trust it. And I think it's going to take quite a long time before we start seeing results. So I don't know. How about you?
Well, we talk about playing without Ciro Immobile, Felipe Anderson, and Luis Alberto, but we have to say something. Finally, after ages, and I'm really talking about ages, we are able to score from corner kicks. I mean, in these friendly games, I don't know how often we score on corner kicks. I mean, we lose Alberto. We were already thinking about the next chance, right? Not take a counter attack from the corner kicks, things that happened a lot last year. So at least something different. We saw it.
Not shooting from every corner, you mean?
Yeah. And we should do a podcast about it because Luis Alberto finished his career with Lazio without scoring once from corner kick, even though he tried like 300 times, right?
Yeah. That's true. I mean, this is something we've complained about for years and years, isn't it?
Ages.
Uh, and yeah, it was nice the goal they did score from a corner because it was two of the new signings linking up. It was funny because Noslin missed quite an easy header earlier
Wow.
in that game and then managed to score a far more difficult one. But yeah, you never. I mean, exactly. Having new players brings new qualities, and some of them will be hidden qualities. I mean, you mentioned him briefly before, but we've not really talked about him beyond that. Like Deli Bashiru is such an unknown, really. I mean, and the fact that he's come with a few fitness problems as well means that
Yeah.
yeah, we just don't really know what to expect from this guy. It could be anything. Um, as Lazio fans, I think we're naturally cautious because we've been burned so many times in the transfer market, getting overexcited about unknowns, and so we'll have to see how that goes. But
Yeah.
I don't know. It's going to be fascinating seeing how this pans
Yeah.
out.
The thing, Alasdair, is that it's going to be completely different, right? I think very physical compared to the past, very dynamic because we have a lot of fast players and very young, which I think before the Inzaghi era we never saw nothing like that. So this raises question mark. I mean, Chauna is someone I really love, but I expect him to be playing some amazing games and then disappears in others. I thought we needed some balance, right? And we need youngster with quality, but we needed some experienced player. Now the problem is the experienced player we signed is Castrovilli, who didn't play pretty much in the last 2 years. So you don't have nothing guaranteed from Castrovilli. That's my biggest concern. I mean, he's another question mark, right?
Yeah, absolutely. For the reasons we mentioned before. I mean, the other thing I would say about, I mean, I mentioned right at the start when we were talking about the leadership group and the new core and so on. But beyond that, the other thing I think we should mention is that although the average age has been brought down, like we said, with all these new signings who are all very exciting, we should remember they started doing this previously. And this is a big year for a few of the other guys who we've almost stopped talking about. Isaacson, Rovella,
Yeah.
Mario Gila. Is that guy gonna build and consolidate the form we saw from him last year, or was it a one-off? Even Mandas, is Mandas there to push Providel? Is he going to be actually getting game time? There are some exciting young players who are already in this squad who we didn't just sign this summer, but I think it's a big season for these guys. I mean, Isaacson in particular, because
Yeah.
so many of the new signings have come in to challenge him for a position that he was already struggling to get. Uh, he has to deliver this year because it's probably that or he's out. So that's going to be interesting with the young players who are already there, seeing what they can produce.
No, definitely, definitely. You're completely right. Isaacsen in this summer didn't play that well. He had some sparks, but wasn't consistent. So I think he feel the pressure a little bit now because he knows that they brought in players that can play in his position. But yeah, he definitely have to step up. Year one, we could understand he need to uh, uh, adapt to a different type of football. Serie A is completely different from the Danish league. No offense, Carsten, you know it. So this is a big season for Isaksen, and he knows that if he's gonna play well with Lazio, he can be called in the national team. So definitely that. Rovella, I think another thing important is while Rovella, Guendouzi, and pretty much all the new signing of last year played decent or well last year. Isaacson was the one probably with Tati that didn't play that well, so he need to prove something. Um, Hila, I think he's gonna continue like last year. We need to see more from Rovella. I think he played well last season, but now we need another step forward because without Luis Alberto, we need a regista there, right? And it's not going to be Guendouzi. He doesn't have those skills. Maybe Castrovilli, but I mean, Rovella needs to step up and maybe be more a leader in that group, right?
Yeah, it was a strange season for Ravella, wasn't it? Because I think he won everyone over. Everyone
Yeah.
likes Ravella, but he's still not managed to nail down a consistent place in the team, whether it's selection or fitness or whatever. So it's a big year for him. big year for Nicolo Casale. I mean, that guy looked like 2 years ago he was one of the big future key parts of this team as a young player who was brought in and did brilliantly in his first year. And now he's almost been written off by everyone because last year was such a disaster. So it's a huge, and again, another big year for him. And this is what I do like about this squad. You look through it and you think these guys are going to be motivated, and there's not a lot between them. I think this is the benefit of not having these undisputed stars. In
Yeah.
Inzaghi's team, you had 5 or 6 players at least who were always going to play regardless. Whereas this team, I think it's very difficult to find a position where there isn't serious competition just because the level of ability is pretty even across the squad. I would say the counter argument to that is clearly that the level of ability is probably lower than we would like across the squad, but it does at least creates real competition for places and real motivation and hunger from these players. I hope, anyway. I'm trying to be optimistic about it.
Yeah, you mentioned Casale, and you're perfectly right because he needs to step up because we saw it, right? Uh, Patrick is getting injured very often, so he's not going to be available every single game. He as well has had some problems. Uh, in my mind, I would have loved to sign a new central defender, but I'm a little bit concerned about this, right? Romagnoli has some injury, so he can miss some games, etc. If Casale is going to play, he needs to step up and play not like last year. Otherwise, it's going to be a big issue for us, right? So maybe signing another central defender would be an option, but they trust Casale. So I hope they're right. I'm a little bit concerned about that, right?
Yeah, even Patrick, who was so strong, obviously a couple of years ago, and didn't get as much game time, but it did always concern me. It concerned me a hell of a lot this time last year because I didn't see the Gila explosion coming. I don't think anyone did, to be fair. But yeah, the defense for me is still the biggest cause of concern squad wise. Uh, but you could make an argument anywhere around this team, really. Apart from in goal, I think Provedel and Mandas, we've got a very strong couple of options there.
Yeah.
Um,
Before we wrap it up, there have been rumors that Wolverhampton or other Premier League team could come and offer a nice fee for Mandas. I said for a club like Lazio, you should have two starting goalkeepers and you should have competition everywhere. Number nine, number seven, defender, etc., even goalkeeper. Because we saw it with Strakosha, right? We not nobody behind him pushing him. Strakosha level start to drop. So I think Mandas is very important to keep Provedel training hard, but even because he's very young, very talented, and I think in the future he's gonna have the opportunity to become number one. So if this offer is not amazing, like 30, 40 million euros, I think Lazio should reject the offer to sell Mandas. What do you think about this?
yeah, I mean, I think we talked about this previously, and I said if the offer is that if it's silly money, definitely take it because it's all profit, and all we've got to go on is a handful of games from last season. I would love him to stay because I think he looks very interesting. Great to have a young goalkeeper as an option, but if we're talking about a huge amount of money for a guy we've hardly played, and we've hardly paid any money for, that could really help the club. But ideally, the career of a goalkeeper is long. The fact that he's 22 means he can afford to be a number two for another year or two because he will still, hopefully, I don't know how Baroni's planning on doing it, but he could play him in the Coppa and the Europa League, and he would still get double figures appearances over the course of a season, probably, as all things going well. um, and yeah, I think that could be a good way of doing it as long as he's happy to do that. And Provedel's hardly ancient either, so he's got a long time ahead of him too. But it's nice to have that option because he's another one like Hilo who came out of nowhere last season, really.
Alasdair, to wrap it up, where do you think Lazio's finishing this season?
Uh, I think it's going to be difficult. I'm not seeing this as being a season that will start well. I'm hopeful it will end in a positive way. I'm hopeful that we can, as fans and the club, give Baroni a bit of patience with it. Um, but I can see us finishing in around seventh or eighth in Serie A, due to both the Europa League distraction, the way the squad is, the amount of unknowns, and also the fact that I think a lot of the clubs around us have strengthened. So I don't know. That's not a particularly optimistic prediction, but with my realistic hat on, that's kind of where I see it. How about you?
Yeah, I agree. Seventh, eighth. That's the position at the moment. Transfer market is still open. Everything can change, but I think that. And Coppa Italia, well, we have a terrible draw. I mean, we have Napoli next draw probably, and then eventually, if we beat Napoli, there's Inter. So I don't think we have a chance to go much deep in the Coppa Italia. So we have to rely on the Europe League to have a good draw. But it's gonna be really difficult with all these youngsters. So seventh, eighth probably should be enough to the Europe League. But yeah, I think it's going to be a hard season for us, very difficult. But you know, we should be prepared. Helmets on, and let's hope that we can do something good, positive. The beginning of the season shouldn't be very hard. I mean, there's Lazio Venezia, first game of the season at home. I mean, if we don't win that game, it's going to be really hard for us, right? So let's hope that at least the first game will go well.
At
But
least
yeah,
we're getting them with Di Francesco, before they sack him inevitably in 2 months' time.
yeah, I wonder if Tati Castellano will score a brace against Di Francesco again. I mean, always.
Well, he needs to find his new Frosinone, whoever it is. He needs to find one. Yeah.
Yeah, I was a little bit concerned that in the friendly game he didn't score. Is that the sign that it's over?
Yeah. It was only when they were a Serie A club. Now he's not interested anymore.
Well, I think we can wrap it up here, Alistair. Thanks again for joining me. Thanks everybody for listening. And obviously, we'll be back after Lazio Venezia. First game of the season, guys. Serie A is starting. Don't know if I'm more excited or more concerned about this season, but we'll find out. Thanks everybody for listening. Thanks, Alistair.